Chris is going to be right here. It's zero time.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Good. Awesome. Can you hear me okay? All right. We'll try that one more time. Hello, everyone. There we go. All right. My name is Tori Edwards. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Director of Engagement here at Allendale UMC. When we welcome people into our space, we like to do two things. Share part of our welcome statement, which our leadership team has written to share with anyone that steps foot on our campus. So that goes, whatever your race, ethnicity, economic situation, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, background or belief, age or condition of ableness, whether single or partnered, you are God's beloved and are welcome here. Another thing that we like to do is recognize the land that we're on. We are currently on Seminole and Tocobaga tribal land. As a faith community, it's important to us to have a holistic approach to our ministry. Our ultimate goal of loving our neighbors can be reached by how we worship, live, vote, and advocate. The text that we hold sacred calls us into alignment with the marginalized, some of which you heard in our welcome statement. We are honored to share our space with you tonight as we find ways that our values align and we can serve and love St. Pete together. Next, we want to take a moment to invite everyone to share this live stream to your Facebook. So if you have Facebook, if you're on social media, you can go to the Democratic Club of St. Petersburg. You can like this live stream and share it so anyone who's not here is able to see that. And anyone who's live streaming, you can also share it so other people have a chance to see. Now I'd like to pass it off to Jim Donnellan, the president.
I know that applause was not for me, that was for Tori. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I want to, first of all, thank Reverend Oliver, who likes to be called Andy, for making this facility available for us tonight. We have some quick club business we got to take care of before we get to the questions. So, number one, we're going to dispense with a lot of the formalities that we normally do at a club meeting and get right into approving the minutes of our last meeting. So I need a motion from one of our members to approve the minutes. Mike Fox. And the second, and it's been seconded. Is there any discussion about approving the minutes? None. I don't hear none. Thank you very much. I'm telling you, this is going to be quick. Our treasurer is currently on a leave of absence, so I am filling in for the treasurer. We have a deposit this past month of $111, which leaves us a balance of $1,544.13 in our account, and we'll file that for audit. There are voter registration forms on a back table in English and Spanish and vote by mail requests. So if you are not registered or you want to change your party from no party or Republican to Democrat, those are the forms to use. And if you're not registered, those are the forms also to use. Two questions, quick. District 2 is Brandy Gabbard. She does not have a Democratic opponent. She was invited tonight if she wanted to come. She decided, since I don't have any Democratic opponent, I'm going on to November. Why spend the time? That's fine. And Gina Driscoll from District 68 is out of town, but we do have her opponent here with us tonight. And I won't try to mention her name because I'll screw it up. We do have some celebrities, I would call them. Charlie Gerdes, former city council member. Stand up, Charlie, and be recognized. We also have with us tonight the former chair of the Democratic Party, Susan McGrath. Susan McGrath, stand up. Okay, there's Susan over there. We have a candidate for the 13th Congressional District to take over when Charlie Crist becomes governor, and that's Eric Lynn. I don't know where Eric is. He's here someplace. Eric, stand up. Thank you very much for being here. And last, of course, but not least, is Nicole Carr, who has been a big supporter of this club for many, many years. Nicole, where are you? School board member. And I think I saw a candidate for state attorney. Is she here? I'm sorry. Stand up. Allison Miller. Thank you very much, Allison. Okay, I've taken care of that. I've got to introduce the board members. I'm going to start with the vice president of the club. He's the guy that calls everybody. He's outside, John Schreiner. John, you can stand up if you want. Our secretary, Max Einstein. Max is at that table there. Thank you very much, Max. Mike Fox, our political director, who is the Energizer Bunny. I'm going to forget somebody. Pat Holmes is back there someplace. Pat Holmes is over here. Oh, God, who have I forgotten there, huh? Jamie at the sign-in table, and Jane Thomas is there at the sign-in table also. Thank you very much. Okay, the spotlight for this election is on the mayor's race, naturally. Very good candidates running. We're going to be having them next month. But to me, the city council is as important, or maybe even more important. We're electing 5 city council members in November. The people you see on the stage, hopefully, at least 4 or 5 of them will be sitting on council come January. Very important. They vote by district for the primary on August 24th, and then in November, everybody in the city gets to vote for them. So if you don't live in their district, you can talk to your friends, your neighbors, and everybody else. Okay, I'm almost finished here. I'm getting close. Okay, next month we're going to have the Democratic candidates for mayor, only the Democratic candidates, and they'll be either here or over in the community room. It's up to Reverend Oliver. And I want to mention on the Sunday before Labor Day, we will have our 13th annual Labor Sunday picnic. Okay, the watchword for this club is fairness. We have a panel of 3 people who have gone through your questions and discarded all the ones that were inappropriate. Not that they didn't agree with that, but they were inappropriate. I don't know, that's their judgment. I had nothing to do with it. They've also eliminated the 20 questions about Tropicana Field and try to get them into 1 or 2 questions. All right, I'm going to introduce our moderator. I'm sorry, Kim. Kim Diaz is on the board as our newsletter editor. I'm sorry, I'm bad. You know, when you get to be my age, you have memory problems. And Kat is over there, is also on our board, doing all this technical stuff. This is my, I guess, my minute of fame. Before I get to introducing her, I would like everybody to stand up for 1 second and look on the back of their chair. On the back of 3 chairs, on the back of the chair they're sitting in. There's a little thing with a card in it. Does anybody have that? That was on the back of your chair. If you look behind the card, oh, it was not on your chair. Okay, so nobody won the $100 because it was on that chair. All right, I'm going. Nothing in it. It's not a winner. Sorry. Hold on to that. Hold on to that. I'm going to introduce.
It's wonderful to have his service in our community. I want to thank the members here today with the club who have helped all of us to learn more about each of the candidates for City Council and hosting this event. It's a tradition of this club to hold these type of candidate forums as a democratic process to bring more people into the process for the elections. And I want to thank each of the candidates for being here and your role and willingness to answer questions sight unseen. And you're good at that, so I have no doubt that it'll be something you'll rise to the challenge of. I also want to say, speaking from personal work experience and working in local government, Teresa Jones was my first boss when I started in local government. I've served in local government for 9 years, 2 different local governments, but I started in St. Pete after teaching overseas. I also want to say that I went on to the federal government, and the reason why I bring that up is I have had experience working with all levels of government, for which all of these candidates, whichever one wins, you'll know what intergovernmental relations is as a critical factor in your service. And I can share with you that even though I work with all levels of government, when you are in local government, you are at the closest level to the people, looking into their eyes and honoring and hearing them speak from their hearts. And there is no greater privilege to be there and to serve their needs to the best of your abilities. And the people that are here in the audience tonight are indicating their willingness to be here to learn more from you and to support you in the process. The other thing about local government service is it teaches you to listen more effectively and to be engaged with and to know who you are serving from day to day, even if it requires 24/7 responses during emergencies like hurricanes and disasters. To me, public service is a privilege, even if it takes all of what you've got from time to time, but the great rewards are what you make a difference in the lives of so many. So we wish you well in this debate or this forum tonight, and I will close with another comment at the end. As far as the forum here tonight, let me kind of go over some forum rules. Each candidate, starting with District 1 and going alphabetically, will be given 1 minute to introduce themselves. I will then direct questions to individual candidates based upon what we have received from the audience, and in some cases to both persons in that district. So we have actual questions that are directed to specific candidates. And then we also have all questions for everybody. You'll be given 1 minute to respond, and Kim Diaz is going to hold up the yellow card at 45 seconds and the red card at 1 minute. And when the red card goes up, I'm moving on to the next question. At the end of the forum, we're going to give each candidate a 1 minute time limit to close. And we're going to go in the reverse order, starting with your district and move across. So you'll start to begin and you'll start to end. Okay. I think that pretty much takes care of it. Any questions? Okay. We'll go ahead and start with self-introductions with District 1, and we're going to start off with Copley Gertis.
Thank you. And thank you to Allendale Church for having us in the Democratic Club. I really appreciate being here, blessed and honored. My name's Copley Gertis. I'm running in District 1. I'm born and raised in District 1, went to school there, grade school there, high school there, now raising a family there, and all of my memories, for the most part, are in District 1 growing up. And now I'm very happy to say that hopefully that will be the same for my children. And so, you know, the reason I'm running is I didn't know I'd be doing this. We lost our city council person to the mayoral race, and there was an opportunity to serve this amazing city that has grown so exponentially during my lifetime, and I want my kids to experience that same thing. And as I've learned over my adulthood in St. Petersburg, is that this city gets way further with cohesion rather than division, and I want to be a part of that cohesion. So I appreciate the invitation to be here and look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
And our next candidate for District 1 is Mr. John Hornbeck.
Hi, thank you very much. John Hornbeck for District 1. When you leave, please make sure you get a flyer because it kind of explains a little bit about me. I'm a husband and a father. My wife, Beth, is a pediatrician at St. Pete Pediatrics. We have a 16-month-old, Johnny. I'm an attorney and small business owner. I started my practice about 5 years ago, so I know what I put a big focus on small business. I actually went to high school, college, and law school, all in St. Pete. Keswick Christian, University of South Florida, St. Pete, and Stetson Law School. And as Copley mentioned, I'm not only a lifelong resident of the city of St. Pete, but I'm a lifelong resident of District 1, and he talked about the person who's going to be vacating that seat actually ran in a different district, did not advance past the primary, and then rented a small apartment in our district. And there was several council members that expressed that he doesn't truly know the needs of our district, and we certainly found that to be true as now we're running again. So please visit votehornbeck.com for more information.
And now we'll move on to District 4. Our first guest here is Lizette Gonzalez-Hanowicz.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisette Hanowitz. I'm running for District 4. I'm currently the president of Crescent Lake Neighborhood Association. I've been serving my community as the president of Crescent Lake Neighborhood Association since 2016. I've been in the district since 2006. I'm born and raised in Florida, born in Tampa, raised in Miami, and life brought me back here to the Tampa Bay area. I've really enjoyed serving my community as the president of the Neighborhood Association. I've found that my skills as an attorney has really helped our community. I've learned how to build community through being the president of the Neighborhood Association. Not only that, I've learned how to listen to the community and find solutions to all the issues, whether it's been transportation issues, infrastructure issues, safety issues. I'm a former state and federal prosecutor. I've worked in education, and we supported our zoned elementary school. So I ask for your vote because I am going to continue doing the same work I've been doing in the community for the rest of the city of St. Petersburg. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Mr. Clifford Hobbs III.
Hello, everyone. My name is Clifford Hobbs III. Candidate for District 4 City Council. And although I am a first-time candidate, I am no stranger to service. I come to you from the hospitality industry as a chef, bartender, server extraordinaire. And some of you may say, well, how does that qualify you to run for City Council? Well, we have to remember, City Council is a service position. We serve you. And in the hospitality industry, we set the stage for some of the best days of your life. And I want to bring that same energy to the District 4 seat. My platform is about rebuilding, reconnecting, and protecting. I want to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure that's been overlooked for decades. 4th Street or MLK Business District is a mecca for small businesses. I want to ensure that those businesses are protected and have the resources that they need to scale and And lastly, I want to work with whoever it takes to find solutions and actions to our attainable housing crisis. Right? Thank you very much.
And moving on to District 6, Miss Marielle Summers.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marielle Summers. And if Jim's here, Jim, don't feel bad. I've been struggling with the name since kindergarten. So you guys will see Summers for St. Pete everywhere this summer as we vie for the seat of District 6 on City Council. I want to serve in this position to help our community become more succinct, more connected, well-equipped, and sustainable as we head into the future. I think the last 4 years we've had a lot of missed opportunities for equity, and there are just too many pockets of underserved and historically excluded neighborhoods that exist in District 6, and I think we can do something about it. So my platform is simple. I want to run it, keep St. Petersburg growing. Let's grow with visible equity, and let's grow with resiliency and sustainability at the forefront of all of our thoughts. I feel prepared to serve in this position, and I look forward to talking to you more about that tonight.
Thank you. Next district, we have District 8. Our first candidate is Richmond Richie Floyd.
Hello. My name is Richie Floyd, and I'm running for District 8 St. Pete City Council. I'm a former electrical engineer and current public school teacher, and more importantly, a community activist. I've worked on campaigns like the $15 minimum wage, returning voting rights to citizens who have lost their voting rights, and a bunch of others in the city. And I'm running because I want to make this city a place that works for everyone, a place where everyone has a roof over their head and clothes on their back, and a place where families can sustain their lives over the long term. And this city's working really well right now for a lot of people at the top, but we really have to make sure that we spread that wealth and that the wealth in the city goes to the working people that helped create the city.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Mr. Dane Kuplicki.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dane Kuplicki, and I'm running for District 8 City Council position. I grew up here in this area, and I love St. Petersburg, and I love the people here. I'm running to serve each and every one of you with fair, logical, and pragmatic leadership. And that's what we really need. There's a lot of big topics ahead in the next 4 years, from everything from sustainability and resiliency to climate change to affordable housing to recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic to transportation and the Tropicana Field redevelopment. So I'm going to be someone that acts on behalf of all residents and makes logical decisions to the benefit of everyone. I appreciate your time. I thank each and every one of you and look forward to your questions tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you. District 1. Let me have this question go to Mr. Gerdes. In the organization that you are involved in, what have you done to achieve equity? What will you do to ensure equity in our city government?
Yeah, so a couple of the organizations that I'm a part of with St. Pete PAL and the Community Preservation and Planning Committee. You know, in St. Pete PAL, what we're really trying to do is create a place where any kid across the city, no matter economic, family, whatever it may be, is that kid has a safe place to go and be educated and learn from adults and police officers, because those kids become great people, those people become great citizens. And if we do that across the city, that's really how we can create that. And then on the Community Planning and Preservation Committee, you know, having our historic neighborhoods and land development come in and really looking at the city from a 30,000-foot view, it's not just about pockets of the city, it's about the city as a whole and how we create that equity and making sure that we're doing that all together and we're not being divisive across that and making sure everybody's got a voice and everybody gets heard.
Thank you. Mr. Hornbeck?
So,
No,
Copley mentioned.
I have a different question for you.
Oh, can I touch on that?
If you want to do it within your time limit.
Yeah.
My question for you is, would you agree to sue the state for their continued home rule violations?
Yeah, as an attorney, that's one of the most annoying things for me. So absolutely, I've went on record 100 times before and said absolutely for that. Yes. They're definitely overreaching. So Copley mentioned his work with PAL, and most of my background is in youth. I didn't mention my intro, but you'll see on my literature is that I was awarded the Volunteer of the Year by the City of St. Pete for my work with the youth. I was later a paid city employee as a youth development worker, and one of my very top priorities is my Youth First initiative, where I want to make sure that every kid, despite their socioeconomic background, has access to these programs like Walter Fuller, where we take them off the streets where they're unsupervised and put them in these fitness and social-driven programs. So that's one of my very top priorities.
Thank you. Ms. Hanowicz, all politics is local, as former House Speaker Tip O'Neill said a long time ago. But as we know now, that is only possible within the framework of our Constitution, for which you will take the oath of office if elected. How will you protect our democracy at the local level?
Well, I think, first of all, as an attorney, I think the most important thing is having people at the local level be involved. And part of the reason I was involved in the neighborhood association, because that's as grassroots as you get. The issues that affect you in your community are the issues that you're going to deal with every day. And to make sure that your officials in city council listen to you, you have to organize. And I think it's very important that we make sure that every neighborhood in our community is heard. It's not just the ones that are organized, but everyone else. So I am going to ensure not only that other communities that have a voice already are involved, but every community is involved. And I am going to make sure that our Constitution and all our civil rights are followed, because that's something that I took an oath as an attorney, and that's going to continue in City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hobbs, how do you plan to assist small businesses in the MLK district?
Thank you for that question. I would first assist them by creating a space where they can all be heard. I would like to encourage them to join their association and then connect them with our Chamber of Commerce. I would also fight to work for or provide protections for them, financial protections, just in case anything happens like a global pandemic or anything of that sort. A few years back, or last year, we introduced the Fighting Chance Fund that protected our small businesses. And I would like to continue funding for that for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Summers, a component of your platform is community investment. Can you elaborate on goals in this area?
Thank you. It's a great question. So when I talk about visible equity, I'm talking about looking at our development in these underserved, historically excluded communities from an economic lens. Right now, and it was actually a few years ago, so it's probably more, but the organization One Community identified over 2,500 Black entrepreneurs here in the city of St. Petersburg. And so as we look at how our investment goes to these not nonprofits. As we look at how our investments go to these underserved communities, we have to realize that the Chamber's identified low commerce, low market communities as costing our taxpayers more. We have to get creative with how we are investing in these businesses growing. And we have to allow these entrepreneurs a chance to chase the American dream as participants, not just as job seekers, but as pioneers of industry. So my platform would be to invest in those entrepreneurs who exist.
Thank you. Mr. Floyd, the question for you directed is, what is your favorite resolution to the situation regarding the Tropicana Field Tampa Bay Rays situation?
Yeah, this is an important question. I'm sure everybody up here is going to want to speak on at some point. So for me, I think what's most important is less about the details about which plan is going to be there, less about will there be a hotel in this area or a convention center in this area, and more about the real grounding, the real fundamental differences we're going to make in people's lives by building that. And what I mean when I say that is, how are we going to have accountable situations for the developers and the businesses there to make sure that they actually invest in our community, to make sure that the wealth is built for everyone. So when I say that, I mean, I want to see hard numbers on how much affordable housing is going to be built at the site. I want to see hard numbers on what affordable means in housing, how many living wage jobs are created, how those living wage jobs are going to people in the Southside CRA that need it, deserve it, and are owed it. And I'm going to make sure that we have accountability measures in place for the developers and the businesses that go there to make sure that we get what's owed to the people who have been displaced by that site in the first place.
Thank you. Mr. Kuplicki, as this is another one directed to you. As a member of the healthcare community, how do you think COVID was handled by St. Petersburg? Would you have done anything differently? And would you plan to vaccinate the underserved community?
Yes, that's a great question. This has been an unprecedented event that we've all been faced with. And as a city council, I don't think we could have predicted this. You know, there's a lot of people that said that there was eventually going to be a pandemic that affected us in this manner. But I think that the city did a really great job. You know, there were lots of decisions made about the mask mandates, and I think that there was some turmoil amongst the business community. I don't blame them in some aspects because they're trying to run a business. You know, they're trying to keep their doors open, and they're trying to feed their families. So I don't agree about the penalties that some of those businesses faced, but I do think that we did a very good job in terms of managing the mask mandate. At my practice, we still enforce that, and it's something that has saved the lives of so many people. So in addition, you know, when the next pandemic comes, we need to take a look at what we did with the current pandemic and learn from that. And in the underserved communities, I wholeheartedly think that we need to do everything we can to vaccinate them.
Okay, thank you. Going through the list of questions, District 8. No, we've got that over there, I'm sorry. Good. Back to District 1. Will you sell off any of the 86-acre Trop site to private interests? This is Mr. Gerdes.
Well, first and foremost, in the Trop site, the first thing we have to do is move the Trop site into the Southside CRA because you displaced an entire community and really didn't get anything for it. And so to make sure that we try to right that wrong as much as we can, you have to move the Trop into the Southside CRA. And no, right now I would not parcel off anything of the current development. It can be done as a whole, and if it's done as a whole, that means more. If you move it into the Southside CRA, that means more money is only going to flow to the people that deserve it. So no, the short answer is no.
Okay, all right. Mr. Hornbeck, what is your plan to show Black residents of Pinellas that you care about them and not just their vote?
Well, we had an NAACP meeting last week, and I was one of the only candidates when they first asked the question, who here has attended an NAACP meeting, that raised my hand. So can you repeat what the specific question was? Well,
I'm reading it exactly as it's presented to me. What is your plan to show Black residents of Pinellas that you care about them and not just their vote?
yeah, so most of my plan, because I've worked in underprivileged schools that somehow were rated a D, and that's part of my Youth First initiative, is if youth intervention starts between the ages of 8 to 14 years old, and for every dollar we spend on these programs, like I said, taking the kids from being unsupervised off the street and putting them in these fitness and social driven programs is going to reduce crime and is going to help our general Black population.
Thank you. Mrs. Hanowicz, what are your ideas for developing affordable housing and better income equity so all communities in St. Pete benefit?
The affordable housing is a huge issue. It's not just here locally, it's a nationwide issue. And we have the perfect storm happening, whether it's high demand, low inventory, whether it's rising costs in terms of construction costs. And we have to make sure that we work with our state and federal partners, our county, because it's not just going to take city money. Everybody needs to understand it's going to take state money, it takes Sandowski funds, it takes Pinellas penny funds, it takes federal funds to make sure that we address affordable housing here. And there's lots of tools that we can use to address affordable housing. The city can go ahead and has land that it can develop in terms of not-for-profits and do community land trusts. It can also work to make sure that developers that are building they get benefits in terms of also building affordable housing within mixed developments. So there are lots of things that we can do as city council to encourage affordable housing, but it's going to take a lot of work, and I am devoted to make sure that that is a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a question specifically for Mr. Hobbs. If you are elected, what will be the first action you take?
The first action I would take would be listening. Oftentimes people come into these organizations and into these roles and want to change everything. What I would do first is spend time listening to my constituents, listening to everyone that I can, getting the lay of the land, and then thinking about the decisions or the actions that I want to take afterwards. But listening would be my first action.
And Ms. Summers, this is directed for you. How do you plan to address the deserts that have been created along with the proliferation of multifamily housing development? How can we balance low-income, how can we balance low-income housing in South St. Pete with less affordable house elsewhere? I think that's the gist of the question.
Okay, so we'll take a stab. That is a packed question for 1 minute. It is. But, I will say this, that the food deserts are a huge problem. The fact that Tangerine Plaza has sat empty for the last 4 years is a travesty. And we have Save-A-Lot now slated, that whole area in my district, which is also slated for redevelopment. And so first of all, when we talk about affordable housing, there can't be trade-offs. That's not sustainable, that's not resilient. We can't tear down grocery stores to build affordable housing. The second thing is we have to have ordinances put in place that provide these things, like the community benefits agreement. The community benefits agreement should have passed in council by now, and it's a failure that it hasn't. But I also think we have to allow zoning laws and some flexibility on things like multifamily homes and tiny house building. But ultimately, it comes back to the economy, breathing life into the people who live there to avoid gentrification, investing in those entrepreneurs to grow the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Floyd, this is a question for your District 8 candidates. What are your plans for municipal improvements in District 8, north of 9th Avenue North? And what about the Times printing plant location?
Yeah, so as far as municipal improvements north of 9th Avenue, I think one of the big things that we've come across now is that there's certain pockets of District 8 that don't have the same access to green space that other places do, specifically the places south of 9th Avenue North. So I think north of 9th Avenue North and east of 34th Street needs to have things like parks and public recreation added to it. In addition to that, what was the second part of the question again?
What about the Times printing plant
Oh,
location?
yes, yeah. So the Times printing plant, and this goes for the Times printing plant, but also every development that happens in the city. The community needs to be engaged, and I don't mean let's just hold a forum and invite people. I mean, we need to go to meet people where they are. That's what we do in the campaign, is we go and meet people where they are. So we should be sending people out to talk to people on their doorstep in their community, and making sure that their input is put in, and making sure that whatever happens at those sites is negotiated by those members of the community, and so that the wealth being built at the site can be invested back into the community.
Thank you. And Mr. Kaplicki, this is a question directed for you. Can you tell us about how you will advocate your positions with City Council if elected? How you will advocate and I guess interact or advocate your positions with the City Council if elected?
Yeah, so there's a number of different positions. I think going off of what Clifford said, the first thing to do is listen, and whatever positions I may hold, those are my positions, but ultimately it comes down to what the residents' positions are and addressing those. So I'm going to be someone that keeps an ear to the ground, always keeps an open door, open phone line, open email line, and basically is available 24/7 to listen to what the community needs and then take action on behalf of that. And before taking action, really understanding and fully being knowledgeable on those topics so that we can get the correct resources in place to help those residents take action.
Thank you. And back to Mr. Gerdes. Will you support and expand upon St. Pete's new specialty task force of non-police responders?
Yeah, I do support that. We're asking our police officers to wear too many hats. And we've got to have other people that have specialty in other areas respond in non-police matters. And we've got to support that. And I think we've done a good job of pivoting that way so far. We've got to do even better. And so, but we also can't forget that our police officers who protect us, they need our support too. But you've got to support the people and take some of the hats away that we're asking our police officers to wear right now. And we've got to continue to invest in those programs that give us an opportunity to serve this community much better than just our men and women wearing blue.
Thank you. And Mr. Hornbeck, do you support Medicare for all, like the resolution passed by City Council? I brought it up again, and will you support it? That's from one of the audience.
I honestly have mixed feelings about this. My wife, I speak to her about it, as I might have mentioned in my introduction. She's a pediatrician, and that's just not, it's not a simple yes or no for me. I was a big proponent of Obamacare, and I'll tell you, I was able to receive it. So I was serving tables. I worked my way through college and law school serving tables, and I'll never forget one of my close friends, Foster, who was a dishwasher there, who did not make very much money, the smile on his face when he was able to go see physicians all of a sudden that he was never able to afford. So I do want to make sure that everybody, despite their income, has access to quality health care. The way it's naturally set up, I could spend more time with, but thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Hannequist, we've got several questions on the stadium. So I'm going to cover them because they're a little bit different angles. Will you keep the land in the Tropicana deal public so it's not sold off, and so long as the African American community is at the table?
Well, first of all, I think whoever drafted the contract for the city did a fantastic job, because the Rays have not been able to get out of it. So that is something that I think is very important, that whatever deal that we ensure for the city, we do the best for our citizens. In terms of that deal, I think the community benefits agreement, and let me tell you, there is a talk about an ordinance. You can have a community benefits agreement without an ordinance, and it's going to happen with that with that site. There is no developer that's going to go there that is not going to do a community benefits agreement. And I don't think there's a city council that's going to allow that, because if public money is going, and what I mean in terms of infrastructure, because there is going to be public money going into the infrastructure in there, that means that the community should benefit from it. And most importantly, I think the communities that was displaced, whatever benefits, I really believe they should benefit from that, because every neighborhood should rise, especially the neighborhoods that were directly affected in our community. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Hobbs, how would you describe your leadership style, and why do you believe it's effective?
Coming from the hospitality industry, my leadership style is all-inclusive. I like to hear different voices, different perspectives from people from all different ages, races, and sexual orientations. I believe that when you have all voices represented, that's when you yield the best product. So my leadership is about listening, figuring out people's strengths, and capitalizing on that. So yes, that's my leadership style, just listening. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Summers, what is your vision for ensuring integrity and ethics in government and as a public servant?
Thank you. You know, this is very important. Integrity and ethics are everything, especially in public service, because it's such a vulnerable position to serve on behalf of those who sometimes can't even speak for themselves. I think the most important thing we can do is offer transparency. We can create clear networks for our constituents. For my constituents, it would be, you know, the newsletters, but also the canvassing, the same kind of tactics that we're going to use to earn your vote. I want to keep those tactics is a bad term for it, right? But, you know, keep that same energy is how the young folks are saying it these days, right? Is, you know, we want to make sure that we're in constant contact with our young, or not our young people, with our constituents, that they know what resources are available, and that they have a clear path to hold us accountable monthly, quarterly, and so forth. So transparency is the name of the game.
Thank you. Mr. Floyd, what is your top priority goal for furthering community sustainability in St. Petersburg?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. What is your top priority goal for furthering community sustainability in St. Petersburg?
Yeah, so my top priority for, you know, furthering sustainability in the city is continuing to double down on the plans that the city has already made in things like the Integrated Sustainability Action Plan. And this is a comprehensive plan that makes our city more resilient, leads us to a clean, green energy future, and does it in an equitable way as time goes on in the future, and invests in the communities that need it the most. And so I bring this up because we're on track for this, but we haven't been following up. We haven't been accomplishing the things that we need to do in order to get there. And I hope bringing an organizer spirit to City Hall will make sure that we hold ourselves accountable, because I think that's the biggest problem in the city. And so we have a plan in place, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to it through political organizing to make sure that the things happen that need to happen.
Thank you. And Mr. Kuplicki, how long have you been in St. Petersburg, and how have you contributed to its existence?
So I grew up here in South Pinellas County, grew up in Seminole, moved to St. Petersburg in 2005 to attend the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. While at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, I was one of the first residents of the residence hall, first residence hall that they built on the campus. And I served as a senator in the Student Government College of Business. So in that leadership role, we really transformed how that campus was to proceed forward with having student life on campus. And that really drove a lot of action into the city. You know, there are several classmates and peers that I had in school that are now leading businesses or starting businesses, or even part of entrepreneurship programs that are sprouting out new businesses. So I've always been someone that has been involved in the city, has served in leadership roles, has volunteered around the city. The city is my blood. I love this town. And whenever I see St. Petersburg succeeding like it has, even in areas where we need to pick up the pace and build on equity, you know, it's just a outpouring of my love and affection for the city. I love seeing it. All the young candidates here on stage, everyone's young in my opinion. But it's so amazing to see these leaders standing up, and
Thank you.
It's just fantastic.
Very good. And Mr. Gerdes, another audience question is, we all know zoning laws and renter protections can be changed at the city and county level. So what is your, I don't think that they can give you 1 minute for a detailed plan, but they ask for a detailed plan to provide housing to all residents of Pinellas County. So it's a broad question.
The last part was provide housing to all residents of Pinellas County?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have to continue to work on the partnerships that we already have in place, and make sure that the city is working with the state and federal governments to make sure that we're flowing down funds to be able to create housing for everybody in our city. Affordable housing isn't an issue in just certain pockets of it. It's a citywide issue, and we've got to have affordable housing citywide. And so as a city, as city council, we've got to make sure that we are talking to the state, talking to the federal government representatives, and making sure we're flowing down those dollars along with private partnerships to create those opportunities citywide. Because if we're not working together to do it, it's not going to happen. We'll just continue to argue about it and talk about it. And so we've got to come together and make sure that we're using public-private partnerships to make sure it happens.
Thank you. Mr. Hornbeck, are there more steps the city could take or should take to address or resolve homelessness?
Well, I'd like to touch a little bit about the affordable housing, and I'm not sure exactly all the steps that we're taking for the homeless right now, but one of the things that I think that we need to do for low-income people and for the affordable housing is there was a proposed linkage fee, an impact fee, that large luxury developers would have to give a little bit of their profits to help very low-income people. Now, the person who we are seeking to replace that's vacating the seat voted no against that because it would be an undue burden for him. And of course he was going to say that because he was funded by special interest money. And I took a lot of pride in my first race not taking special interest money so that I can do the right thing. And I think that is how we can fix a lot of our city's issues with affordable housing. As Gina Driscoll said in the NAACP meeting, we need more money. We've tapped out a lot of the state and federal money. It's got to come from local. It's got to come from this impact fee.
Thank you, Mr. Hornbeck. Ms. Hanowicz, this is another stadium question from the audience. In Forbes magazine, it talked about publicly financed stadiums are no longer the thing to do. I'm trying to read it. Publicly financed stadiums are a game taxpayers lose. Do you support public finance sports stadiums?
I will tell you this, and I've lived in Florida my whole life, and in Miami, when I lived there, the same issues with stadiums, and taxpayers are pretty much done with financing stadiums. And I will be willing to listen to people, but my opinion is they're done. They're done, and I think that the community has to be part of this conversation because it is very important. Okay, because what happens in the redevelopment of the Tropicana field is going to affect our city. And the bottom line is, whatever happens should be the best for our city. So if that money can go to affordable housing, could go to bringing jobs and other issues as opposed to building a stadium, that's what I'm for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hobbs, what is your vision for increasing affordable housing in St. Petersburg, and how would you implement it?
All right. My vision for increasing affordable housing, number one, when the Tenants' Bill of Rights was originally drafted, there was a part in there that prohibited the discrimination based on a renter's source of income. And I would like, when in office, to add that back. I think that landlords and the management companies should be required to accept rental vouchers. I would also advocate for more incentives for our developers who develop affordable housing within the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Summers, A significant asset of St. Petersburg and surrounding communities are nonprofit organizations who address the various needs of our youth, single heads of households, the elderly, the homeless, the veterans, and other vulnerable populations, and in many neighborhoods. What do you plan to do to support them in furthering their respective missions?
It's a great question. I actually did a report on something similar in 2018 while becoming an emerging leader here under one of the city's programs. My answer then, my answer now is we need to make sure that we have a living network of resources here in our city. It can't just be a website. It can't just be, you know, a place that we tell people to go. But we need to make sure that our silos that you're talking about have, you know, alliances and coalitions inside of them, and that we can snake all of these different resources back together in a very clear, recognizable network. We can do it. We just got to pay attention, and we just got to apply the funding and resources to it. But it's there. The people are there. The resources are there. It's just about tying it all together.
Thank you. And Mr. Floyd, serving the public interest is the primary role of a public servant or an elected official. How will you ensure that this is the focus in your decision-making and in your leadership role?
Yeah, I think obviously serving the public interest is number one most important. And so in order to serve the public interest, you have to be connected to what the public wants. And like I said before, that doesn't just mean, you know, inviting people to come up and talk at a council meeting or even holding just one-off events. It means actually going out and talking to the community. And I think that's what I've been doing throughout my campaign this entire time. Our campaign's been the only one that's qualified for the ballot by petitions. We've knocked on thousands of doors, and we've gone out and we've talked to people, and we're going to do that exact same thing when we're in city council. And so if you want to serve the public interest, you have to know what the public's talking about, and you have to be connected to the public, and that's how I'll do it.
Thank you. And Mr. Kuplicki, on public safety, what, if anything, do you feel is needed to improve public safety goals for the city's residents to reduce gun violence and or to further community relations between the police, public safety providers, and the city's residents?
Yeah, so it's astonishing what's happened over the last few months down on the south side. I mean, you look at the murders and the people that were killed, and it's truly heartbreaking. You know, so we need to come together as a community. We need to be collaborating with our police officers. There needs to be that trust, and there also needs to be that understanding that our youth need more mentorship. They need more opportunities for better growth potential and options, so they're not getting tied into these issues in these areas and avenues where they're going into these violent situations. So we really need to boost that youth presence, or boost the educational presence and the programming presence to our youth. We need to make sure that we have neighborhoods that are active and engaged, and they know what's going on the street next to them. You know, so often now we are tied to our digital devices. We're sitting inside our homes and we don't know what's going on next door. We need to be intertwined as a community. We need to support each other. We need to show up to the neighborhood association meetings, and we need to come up with solutions to solve these problems so they don't continue happening. I'm going to be someone that supports that and bolsters our community organizations.
Thank you. I have enough questions to do one more round of questions, and then we can go to closing if that's what Mr. Donnellan would like. There you are. I have one more round of questions, and then you want to go to closing, or do you want any? For one more round of questions. Okay. Very good. Sorry. Mr. Gerdes, what are the most critical actions the city should take to further global and national climate change goals, and which do you think is most important?
Climate change is going to affect St. Pete. About a year and a half ago, my wife and I started looking for a house. My dad calls me up and says, start looking in different areas because I'm worried about this. And so we've got to look at our coastal lines. We've got to look at how global warming is going to affect our tides and where our sea levels are. We've got to start looking at that now. Frankly, we're probably 20 years behind. And so if we don't start looking at it now, there's a couple 100,000 homes that aren't going to be a part of this city anymore. And so we've got to look at low-lying areas, we've got to look at density issues, and we've got to start it now. And like I said, we're behind the ball, but if we can start and invest in it now, we can at least get as prepared as we can.
Thank you. And Mr. Hornbeck, what is your plan for bringing people together from across the community to address and resolve local challenges, and how will you achieve it?
Well, as Clifford said, and Dane, I think a lot of the candidates, it really does start with listening. Look, we're all going to give you answers about our idea for affordable housing and Tropicana Field, but I really believe us as Democrats up here, the very first thing we're going to do is listen to you. I'm an active member. I'm a board member of my neighborhood association. I got a good pulse. I really like listening. And you know what? We don't have the answers. That's why we have one mouth and two ears, so we can really listen to what you're having to say. So I want you to just take this away, is that anytime that we suggest something, it's not written in stone. We'll give you our ideas for Tropicana Field, but I know most of the people up here, and I know that they're really going to listen to the citizens, and that's why I'm excited about all the candidates up here.
Thank you. And Ms. Hannequist, as Warren Buffett said, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. What do you want to plant, quote unquote, plant for the city's future?
Well, I love that statement because I will tell you this year we had a tree planting program in our neighborhood because I love trees, so we made sure that we planted lots of trees. And, you know, in terms of our future, I want us to be a city that reflects all of us. I mean, we are such a vibrant city, and there are very few people that I know that don't say, I love St. Pete. And that special, unique quality of our city is something that I want us to continue through this growth. And there is growth, no question about it. But we have to be very careful of how we grow, and we want to ensure that we grow so we can have a sustainable city. We want to be sure that we grow just like our forefathers decided we need a waterfront park system and save that land and had a plan and had the vision. We have to have a vision for our city. So I want to be part of that vision and make sure that we're ready for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Hobbs, the use of the city's public parks and community centers has increased with the increase in population over the years. Yeah. What are your plans to further or maximize, with our limited budget and funds, to respond to the demands for maintenance and enhancement of our parks and recreation centers due to greater use of same?
Okay. Yes, the city is blessed with over 175 parks, 15 of which are located in District 4, and we have limited funding that it takes to keep them up. I would look for our federal and state government for funding to help with our parks and recreation. And I would also encourage people to get more involved in community events that help to fund the park and help to keep it up. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Summers, what do you believe the city can do or should do to reduce traffic congestions or to improve public transportation?
So especially with like 1,000 people moving here a month, you know, I love the idea of diversifying our transportation. I enjoy the scooters downtown and trying to build and develop in a way that doesn't require a citizen to get in their car that often. But we also have to work with our partners at the state level and at the federal level to ensure that these construction plans for our city, which they have all the way for at least the next decade, that we're finding ways to see how our city can help speed along some of these ideas that are currently in place for FDOT. So that's my answer is, you know, we have to work with our intergovernment resources, but at the same time, as we develop here, you know, looking for other creative ways for our citizens to get by.
Thank you. And I did have a question for both candidates of District 8 as I'm looking back now, so it's a repeat. And Mr. Floyd, I'm going to ask you, actually that was another question. Hold on just a second. Mr. Floyd, what are your plans for building upon and furthering the city's growing social and cultural diversity and related assets? Would you like me to repeat that? Yeah. Okay. What are your plans for building upon and furthering the city's growing social and cultural diversity and related assets?
So I think when it comes to social and cultural diversity, and growing the cultural and diversity related assets, I think first that means investing in the community that develops those assets. And so that means communities like the African American community or the LGBTQ community and the artist community as well. And so I think that's where we have to start at first, and that means supporting the social movements that have been active in this city. And I've been doing that as an activist in the community, as a political organizer, and I'll continue to do that through work in investment in the South Side, investment in our artists, and investment in working people as a whole.
Thank you. And Mr. Kuplicki, this was a question for both candidates of District 8, and Mr. Floyd has already answered it. What are your plans for municipal improvements in District 8, north of 9th Avenue North, and what about the Times printing plant location?
First off, I think we need to make our roads safe. There's been a lot of accidents with pedestrians in District 8, especially in that corridor that you're talking about. So we need to make bike lanes, and we need to make pedestrian crossways safe with blinkers, and with other resources that we can use so that people aren't getting hit by cars. Second off, in terms of the Times processing facility, it's my understanding that it's still zoned industrial, and I don't know if we'll be able to change that, but if we can, I would be open to it, because that would be a fantastic site to put affordable housing, to make that a really dense affordable housing area with another public park. There's a retention pond that's attached to that site that residents have been clamoring for, to put a park around it, to put a walkway around it. And that can be done. And I would be someone that would work to get that done in a timely manner rather than let that sit on the table for years on end. In addition to that, we always need to have that lens of how can we advance transportation, multimodal transportation along those corridors, because those are some of the busiest corridors in our city, and we need more public transportation.
Thank you. And we are now going into the closing mode. Unless there's any other questions that came from the committee, any more? Nope. Okay. We'll go to the closing, and we will start with Mr. Kuplicki. We're going to do in the reverse order.
All right. I thank all the candidates, and I thank everyone for coming out tonight. I'm running to serve this community that has raised me into the man that I am today. I'm locally savvy. I've known these streets. I've known these avenues since I was a kid. I grew up fishing with my dad on the old pier, and it brings tears to my eyes every time I go to the new pier and see how impactful this is for generations to come. It's an amazing sight. And I think about all the opportunities that we have as a city to grow forward, to rise, or to bring up the residents that have been unfortunately disproportionated, and also build equity in the city at all levels. So I'm gonna be someone that listens to you as a resident. I'm gonna be someone that acts on your behalf and does so in a fair, logical, and pragmatic manner, because this is my heart. Each and every one of you, if you live here in St. Pete, if you live, work, or play here, you're my people. And I'm gonna be running to serve you faithfully as your next city councilman. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Floyd.
I'm a political organizer and a public school teacher, and I've spent the last few years of my life advocating for these issues day in and day out, working hard in my free time to make sure that people have higher wages, to make sure that people have safer streets and to make sure that people have roofs over their head. And I'm going to continue doing that through this campaign, during this campaign, after this campaign, no matter what the outcome is. And so this campaign is not just about getting one person elected, because not one of us up here can tell you we're going to change the city completely on our own. This campaign is about building a movement that can change, making sure that working people and everyday people come together and do what it takes in an organized fashion to make the change in the city that we need. Because everyone in here knows that everyone wants the city to be a better place. And the thing that's stopping us is political will and the organization of working and regular people. And that's what I'm here working on, and that's what I'll continue to work on no matter the outcome.
Thank you. And Ms. Summers.
All right, so thank you all so much for hanging in here and being with us tonight. There's so much I didn't get to talk about tonight. I didn't get to talk about the CHOP. I didn't get to talk about violence in my community. I didn't get to talk about the need for clean maintenance, equity in our communities. I didn't get to talk about preparedness and hurricane preparedness, public health crisis preparedness. I didn't get to talk about being from District 6 or graduating with a degree from political science from USF St. Pete. I didn't get to talk about working for Congressman Charlie Crist and working for Senator Darrell Rousson and most recently Representative Michelle Rayner. And I didn't get to talk about the vast network of relationships that I've built over these last 5 years working in this community. So I hope to become more acquainted with you guys throughout the summer. Please visit my website, summersforstpete.com. I'm joined tonight by my field director, Byron Ball, and we got a kickoff coming up in about 2 weeks here. So hopefully you all can get involved with us. Summersforstpete.com, visit and follow along. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hobbs.
I'd first like to start by thanking the Democratic Club of St. Pete and Allendale United Methodist Church for having us tonight. Today actually marks 11 months since I filed for the District 4 seat. And for 11 months, I've been working tirelessly to prove to everyone that I'm the best person for the seat. Despite everything that I've gone through in my life, despite everything that I've gone through running as a gay black candidate in District 4, I am still here, and I will continue to be here for all of the residents of the city. I thank you all for your time. I encourage you all to go to 3for4stpete.com and leave a donation, sign up to volunteer. I will say this, I'll admit to you that I have not fundraised as well as my opponents have, but I will say this, I have worked my butt off for the last 11 months, and I will continue to do that. I thank you all for your time, and I'll have a good night.
Thank you. And Ms. Hannah, please.
Thank you. For those that know the work I've been doing for the last few years as president of our neighborhood association, they know how much I've put my heart and soul in our community. I have been serving our neighborhood since 2016. And there is not one resident that came with an issue to me that I did not try to find a solution for. And that is important. I've listened to the people in my community. I've been doing the work for years. And I've used my skills as an attorney, as an advocate, to serve my community. And we've served our community by supporting our zoned elementary school and getting mentors in there and getting a learning garden. And I'm on the board of the Shirley Proctor Fuller Foundation, which bridges the gap for students in South St. Petersburg. Education is extremely important to me. Our community is extremely important to me. And I would love to continue my work in this community as your council member for District 4. So thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you. And Mr. Hornbeck.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. And I do want to make something clear that, honestly, I'll be sincerely happy if it's either me or my Democratic colleague to beat the two other Republicans running in our race. So what do you get in John Hornbeck? Well, as I told you before, a listening ear. I freely admit I'm not an expert in all these areas. Many of you are familiar with the 2019 race. It's kind of humbling talking about this, but I lost to Blackman, who now is running for mayor, who received the vast amount of money, who outraised me 4 times, but through special interest money. And look, you're not able to vote your conscience when you take that kind of money. And you can look at my finances, they're actually still on there, they're public information. I didn't take a dime of it because I really do want to be able to work for you. And I showed you, I'd rather lose an election than sell my soul, and I don't know what's more Democrat than that. So please visit votehornbeck.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Gerdes.
My heart is real happy right now. I look at this room and I look at across this table and I look about how diverse it is, and frankly, first and foremost, I'm blessed to be up here with a bunch of smart people that care a lot about our city, and blessed to be sitting next to them, and humble enough to know that sharing my answers to some of these questions, that they're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Because here's how I look at this right now: boss, applicant. Hopefully, right? Boss, employee. I'm not going to have all the best answers. That's why it's employee. That's why you're the boss, okay? And so I'm super humbled to be up here with everybody. Again, it makes my heart extremely happy to see amazing, diverse people pumped up for this city that I grew up in and my kids are growing up in. And I hope everybody has an amazing 4th of July weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Gerdes. And if I may add a couple of things, my parents would have been proud to see this event tonight, and they have served on the St. Pete City Council. My father served for 8 years, and then my mother was elected to the seat for another 8 years. So 16 years my parents served on the St. Pete City Council for District 2, which became District 4, when the growth in populations in District 2 became such that they moved their neighborhood into District 4. But I have to tell you, I know that the demands are great. 24/7, whatever the emergencies are, you're on target. But I want to close with a quote from Maya Angelou, if I could. And she said, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, like you as candidates here tonight and doing throughout your campaigns. And like the many volunteers who are here tonight who are working on campaigns and are members of the Democratic Club, and our leader, Mr. Jim Donnellan, giving of their time and passion. Because as Maya Angelou said, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style makes it all worthwhile." Thank you. And Jim, I'll turn it over.
Okay, I'm about to finish this up. We have been told about 20 questions about Tropicana Field. And I think they might have gotten in 1 or 2. So I'm going to take a quick moment of personal privilege and ask all the candidates, starting over here, to take 1 minute and tell us their vision for Tropicana Field for the future. Number one, I want to thank all the candidates. I didn't see our timekeeper having to wave that red placard too much tonight. If she raised it at all, I don't even know. So I want to thank the candidates for keeping within the time limit. So I'm going to now ask everybody to spend 1 minute before we leave. And then we're going to have some time if you want to hang around and meet the candidates and talk to them. We got some time as we close up here, and we'll try to get out of here about 8:30. Thank you. So I'm going to start off with you, Mr. Gerdes. 1 minute.
First and foremost, you have to move the site into the South Side CRA. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Secondly, listen, I'm a huge baseball fan. Played high school baseball, college baseball, coached college baseball. I would love to have baseball here. That's not first priority. First priority is this city. Do I want baseball here? Yes. Yes. But not at the expense of the city. And so I want that city land to be developed smartly. I want it to be sustainable, and we got to be looking out. I agree with the contract. It was done well. We got to be looking out 50 years. I don't want my kids to be having this conversation about that site 30 years from now. That's the last thing I want. And so Southside CRA, I would love baseball, but not at the expense of the city. And we got to make sure that we are respecting the people that gave up a whole bunch to bring baseball here and now redevelop that site in a very smart and forward-thinking manner.
If you get a chance when you go home, Google John Hornbeck Tampa Bay Times, Tropicana development, and you'll see the answers today are very consistent with what I've said in the past. The tough thing is whatever you decide to do with the Tropicana field, you're gonna have 1,000 people that says, that's a terrible idea. So I've made this crystal clear that although I have some visions for it, it's really gonna be listening to you. Unfortunately, I don't think one of those is to have a new stadium there. Like Copley, I'm a big Rays fan, and I just don't, that land is tainted for baseball. What I think would be better is housing. I think everybody agrees on that. Restaurants, and a world-class convention center. And my wife did her residency in Orlando, and Orlando has the second biggest convention center, second only to Las Vegas, and people from all over the United States, all over the world come there, and they spend their money. I would like to get that money so we can put that towards other things, other issues that face, like homelessness and affordable housing. Thank you very much.
This is the third time I think I answered something about redevelopment of Tropicana Field. So
Yes.
I will say that I see that part of our city as a heart, and it is really going to be a heart of our city, and whatever flows from that is going to flow to those neighborhoods closest to it, and especially as you go South St. Pete. And I would like to see I-175 not there, or some way where you can connect that community back. And if that can happen, I would be so happy, because I think that's going to be critical for the success. We could talk about the Rays, whether they're not. Look, all options are open. The reality is the best deal is going to be the best deal for the community, period. That's it. And then when you get affordable housing, you get jobs, you get more jobs in terms of businesses or a convention center. That's all fine. That's all going to depend on the community. We need green space. But at the end of the day, it's going to be about getting those benefits back to the community and making sure that it is really integrated into those neighborhoods that are surrounding, and it lifts those neighborhoods just like downtown St. Petersburg has been lifted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My vision for the space is to create a space that makes good on the original promise of affordable housing and economic development. I want to create a space that is 100% affordable. I would love to create a space that the community has a voice in what is built there. I would also love to create a space that has green space, that is abundant, and a space for our artists and our entrepreneurs to have a space that they can sell their product or service. I also would love to see a hotel or convention center that houses a big group and brings them into our city. I would love to see a space where all walks of life can thrive. And lastly, I would love to see a space where we have a winning team that we can all cheer on. Thank you.
Ask and ye shall receive. Thank you for the chance to talk about the tribe. Okay, so, primarily equity, visible equity. Equity has to be the name of the game. I went to a presentation by Sugar Hill, which is one of the final groups of the two that are bidding for the redevelopment of this site. And what I love the most about their presentation is equity is built in every step. We know with these development deals, from the first shovel that hits the ground, somebody's making a lot of money. And so, from the developers to the construction workers and the construction-owned companies, down to the actual businesses that will be there and who will inhabit these business spaces, not just work there. These are things that we're going to have to make sure we are setting ourselves up for. Remember, this is going to be a 10-year plan. So I think the other part is making sure that the people who we want to benefit are in a position to benefit. So I'm talking about middle school students having access to apprenticeship programs and trade trainings. I'm talking about high school students having access to entrepreneurship training and helping them learn small business acumen. And again, always going back to those Black entrepreneurs who are, products and services in the South Side are abundant. So ensuring that we're investing in those businesses and entrepreneurs to ensure their growth and sustainability long term, that's going to be key. If we get the right developer and we have equity built in every step of the way, we'll accomplish the goal that a lot of these, smart other people are talking about we need to get to. So.
Good job.
Yeah, so I already got to say a bit about how I'm going to how I'm going to approach the issue of Tropicana Field. So I would appreciate this time to talk about, my vision for what I'd like to see that place be in the future. I'd like to see the Tropicana Field redevelopment area to be a place where, everyone thrives, where where the arts are valued, where there's businesses, where the workers share in the profits that are created at the businesses, where the profits at the businesses are invested back into our community instead of taken off to wherever the owner of the business lives. I'd like to see it a place where there's community investment in things like rec centers and spaces where people can gather and talk to each other in a public setting with long hours so that people can engage after, before, during work, whenever. I'd like to see it a place where everyone can afford to live and people rub shoulders with people from different backgrounds from themselves, and we all enjoy green space, and we live next door to somebody who might not look like us, but we can all afford housing, and the housing there is permanently affordable and is not subjected to the whims of the market. And so, you know, I mean, I guess I get to describe a utopia in essence, but, and I know that that's not necessarily the ideal vision, but that's what we should strive for, and we should fight to make sure that this is something that's contributing to our city to the absolute maximum, and making sure that it's helping us, and especially the people who were displaced there in the first time, and the communities that were displaced there in the first time.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for giving us the extra time to answer this one. First and foremost, we need to have robust community engagement in whatever decision gets made. You know, this isn't about what I believe should go there. It's not what about Richie believes should go there, or anyone else believes should go there. This needs to be a site that serves everyone from St. Pete. And this is a phenomenal opportunity. You look anywhere else in the country, you don't see 86 acres of open land that is up for redevelopment. You know, I think we really got it wrong back in the late 80s and in the 90s, and I was around to see the Tropicana Field get built. You know, as a child, I went and played in between hockey periods as with my youth hockey team when the Tropicana Field used to be the Thunderdome. You know, so that site holds a lot of importance to me. You know, I've been there for so many fantastic Rays games, and you know, that site also holds a lot of importance to so many people from our community, especially those folks that were disenfranchised and swept off of their front porches. Their businesses were closed in order to build that concrete jungle. So what do I think should happen outside of, you know, initially having all that community engagement and that being the first and foremost thing that we do? I think that we need to have attainable workforce housing there, you know, and robust housing. It needs to be a dense area. This is in the middle of the city. We need to have multimodal transportation options stemming out from that Tropicana Field site, going into the south side, going west, going north, so that people can get to that site and use those resources. You know, like so many other people have said, I think that we really need to have a convention center, a world-class convention center there that can drive economic opportunity for our city for generations to come. All these conventions that go to the Tampa Convention Center, we need to be taking a piece of that pie. You know, on top of that, we need to have Class A office space and additional office space that we can bring big businesses in there and local businesses in to be housed in that district. You know, a lot of people have talked about, you know, supporting local businesses, and I think that we really need to support our local businesses and give them first rights on those spaces there that we create at Tropicana Field or at the Tropicana Field site. You know, this should be a smorgasbord of local businesses from all over the area that are able to come in and occupy that space. We saw that happen at the pier with the vendor stands that got set up there. You know, small number of them, but you know, this is a site where we can really bring in local business and support those businesses, keep the rents low, and allow them to thrive in that area. You know, I'm all for a stadium. You know, a huge Rays fan. You know, huge Rowdies fan. You know, if we can combine the Rays and the Rowdies into one stadium and make that a multi-functional stadium that can house other events, you know, I'm all for that. You know, as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay for a stadium. I don't think any of us do. But if we can use some of those bed tax dollars and we can get the Rays to really get on the table and pay for a good portion of that, I'd be 100% in support of that. You know, I'd love to see a World Series, you know, won at that site, and for all of us as a community to be, you know, cheering those Rays on. In addition, I think that we need to have a vocational educational campus at that site that can be training youth from all over our community to be the next leaders for St. Petersburg. On top of that, you know, whatever we do at that site, there needs to be green space. You know, and this needs to be a sustainable building site. You know, I think that this whole redevelopment project should be 100% green.
Thank you, Dane.
No question about it.
Thank you. Let's give a big round of applause to your next St. Petersburg City Council. And thank you all very much. And if you want to stick around and talk to the candidates and they want to stick around, please do. I love that joke.